haven't really seen it yet. You don't know. Good evening. Thank you so much for coming. It's a sellout. It's a big crowd. This is great. I'm a little more nervous than a cat in Springfield right now. Too soon? Too late for those poor cats. My name is Billy Corben. I am the director of From Russia with Lev. And we're very excited to be here presenting it to you this evening. There's a saying I'm very fond of, that LA is where you go when you want to be somebody, New York is where you go when you are somebody, and Miami is where you go when you want to be somebody else. It's always been a sunny place for shady people, and there is always a Florida connection. Watergate, 9/11, O.J. Simpson eventually made his way down there, and Lev Parnas is a consummate Florida man. He really is, and that is our favorite genre. Well, it's really the genre that we hate to love at my company, Rack and Tour. We're making documentaries for nearly a quarter century, the Cocaine Cowboys franchise, the ESPN 30 for 30s, the U Part 2 and Throat, and most recently, one of the my agent, of course. So, and most recently, God forbid, the sex scandal that brought down a dynasty, the most watched documentary in Hulu history, which if you're not familiar with it, I think you'll really dig it. It's about Jerry Falwell Jr., his wife Becky, and an alleged couple threesome they carried out with a pool boy from the Fountain Hotel in Miami Beach, and how that may or may not have gotten Donald Trump elected. And so here we are, at From Russia with Lev, and our genre in Rack Tours, we call it Florida fuckery, is what we call it.
Totally.
Or in this case, Florida men behaving badly with international implications. And it's really these kind of butterfly effect stories of a butterfly flaps its wings in Florida and changes the course of history, or arguably screws up the entire world. And again, this is one of those stories, and we're very excited to bring it to you. Lev Parnas, his story is like it's like Tom Clancy if Jack Ryan were played by Jackie Mason. That's what this is. Thank you for, a lot of people got that. It hasn't gone over that well in some of these movies. We're gonna have a Q&A afterwards. I don't know if you heard. I don't know if she's in the building, but Rachel Maddow might be in the building. If you can clap loud enough. And she'll join us for the Q&A after the movie, and we really look forward to hearing what you have to say about it. So please enjoy it, and so much that you can, From Russia with Lev.
I'm sure I do. That was on? Okay. Rachel Maddow knows how to do this. So I wanted that applause to play because we were kind of waiting in the wings here and didn't get to hear the end applause of the film, so I wanted to let that play out. I am so happy to be joined here tonight. Well, first of all, I do this every time. My name is Carrie Lozano. Let me introduce myself. And I'm really thrilled to moderate this. I work with public media here in San Francisco at ITVS, co-producing independent films across the country for public media. So thank you for supporting the Roxie. Documentaries. Our documentary system is fragile right now, and we need you. So thank you. And I'm thrilled to be here tonight with executive producer Richard Maddow. This is that hat wearing, and Billy Corben, who introduced himself, the director of the film. So thank you both so much for being here. So I'm going to ask a question that I know we always want to know at the very beginning, and both of you can answer, but tell us a little bit about the origin story of this film. You know, how do you start to have a relationship with Mr. Parnas and start to decide that you're going to tell his story? And then I'm going to ask Rachel how Rachel came on board.
Spoil the ending, like this is an incredible full circle journey because the story begins when Rachel interviews Lev Parnas on MSNBC in January of 2020. We had already been familiar with Lev Parnas, the character, as his saga played out in the latter half of 2019, but we're first introduced to Lev Parnas, the character, like in that interview. So the saga, the scandal we were aware of, but not the character. And we're Florida men, so like we know this guy. Like we know a lot of this guy. You know, like a lot of Lev Parnas. He's a very familiar archetype, if you will, in Florida. And so he had already been on our radar. We have a Google document that we have of like interesting stories and characters that maybe someday we might get around to. And it was Rachel's interview that was like, oh, we really need to take this seriously. And we discovered that Lev and I follow each other on the app formerly known as Twitter. And so I slid into the DMs. And it took some time. It took some back and forth, some hemming and hawing, some hazarai, and we ultimately made a date for lunch in, this is my producer partner Alfred Spellman often jokes that in Florida, when you get out of prison, your first call is to your mother, and your second call is to Raconteur to make a documentary about it. And Lev, we met on the way to prison, as it turns out, because it was on the eve of his trial. And that's when we did our first interviews, and now what would have been 3 years ago in the summer of 2021. Yeah.
And in terms of getting that interview, it's important that Billy said that he was on his way to prison, because when you get to talk to people who are repentant bad guys, it is after they get out of prison.
Yeah.
You never get to talk to the repentant bad guy after he's been arrested but before he's been put on trial. Because if you have a lawyer, if you're the bad guy, you have a lawyer, your lawyer will tell you not to do that. And in fact, Lev, who we saw last night in Miami at the premiere of this film there, recounted in great detail after, as soon as he did that interview with me in January 2020, which was astonishing. The Justice Department tried to remand him in custody as punishment for having done the interview, because you're really not supposed to talk about your case before you go to trial. So it was a very unusual circumstance. So, I was offered the interview and I said, I need to talk to his lawyer to make sure it's okay. That's not usually the dynamic at work. But that interview revealed both his character, I believe his true repentance, and the thing that became very key to the film, which is that Lev records everything. And just taking out his phone and showing me texts with like major political figures that weren't even part of the scandal, and it was about scandalous stuff. I realized it was probably the start of something.
I presume like every phone call with him is recorded.
Oh yeah.
You have to.
It's going to be a hell of a podcast someday. I have to say, this was something that was kind of in the movie, but not really, which is that an important moment in Lev's story is when he decided to do this interview, and he was faced with a decision whether to do the interview with Anderson Cooper or with Rachel. And he said he was like not in a good headspace, obviously, at this time, and he called Svetlana, and he said, I have to make a decision, it's got to be an exclusive, who do I do it with? And she's like, why are we even having this conversation? Rachel was public enemy #1 in their household, and she's like, if you're really going to repent, this is going to be a real day, you have to go.
I was just saying, not casting any aspersions on Anderson Cooper here. It was that I was a particular figure of scorn and a representation of evil for the Maddow world.
I'll pass this first.
So you decide you're going to make this film. You've done the key interview, the essential pre-prison interview.
Yeah.
So Rachel, when do you come on board to the film?
Last year, which is deep into the filmmaking process, I learned that Billy and Alfred were doing this film. And you know, I had stayed engaged with, as I call them on TV, my boyfriends, Lev and Igor. I should have apologized to Svetlana about that. But I had stayed engaged with them as characters in this ongoing news story, but I didn't really know that Lev was still talking. And he had done a series of interviews with Billy and Alfred that were stunning. And you guys are such good consolidators and clarifiers of murky situations that I felt like kind of more than anybody else I know in the filmmaking world, you guys were uniquely well situated to take that universe in his phone of what he has recorded and turn it into a cogent story. I also felt like it was really, really, really important to tell this story with a complete appreciation of its absurdity and ridiculousness and humor.
Right.
And that's what there are very many funny documentaries, right? This needed to be a funny documentary, and that's what Billy and Alfred do.
Yeah,
Well, can we
very
talk
good.
about that? Because you really do strike the balance of the absurdity. I love the line. My favorite line was when he said it was the bad news bears of politics. That's exactly what we're seeing. And at the same time, this is really serious. It's the national security, Hunter Biden's reputation, life is on the line. You know, there's all kinds of shenanigans going on that are really scary. So how did you strike that balance of both the humor and the kind of like spy madness of it all, but also, you know, recognizing like this is no freaking joke. I mean, when you think about the ambassador losing her job, which we already, you know, we knew at this point how that unfolded, but when you look back at that, like, you know, what were the conversations you had in the edit to strike that tone?
We have a friend who calls our work Trojan horse storytelling, where you kind of tempt the audience with the sugar and then you feed them the vegetables, you know. And I think that that's important, especially in this day and age, if you're going to do serious topics, if you're going to do politics in a kind of short attention span world. You want to ensure that you've got a hook there that's going to get the audience to lean in and then try to keep them there if you can and hold their attention for 90 plus minutes. So that's just an aesthetic that we've employed in a lot of our work. We call our genre pop docs. That's like our style of filmmaking, because even when we do the serious subject matter, we try to infuse it with a bit of pop culture and a style and a pace and music that just is a little bit stickier and not as serious. And I want to say, you referenced earlier the state of the doc market, which is not good. And I will say that particularly political docs in 2024, distributors were not picking them up, and you'll notice not releasing them. I think the Stormy doc on Peacock is as close to really like a Trump world political doc that we've seen this year. And that was a deliberate decision made by distributors to stay out of this election and this subject this year. And I will tell you that without Rachel Maddow, this movie does not get distributed, probably at all, and certainly not this year when we felt it was a vital time for it to be seen. So thanks.
Yeah, right.
So Rachel, just to that point, with your journalist hat on, you know, what are the things that, like, what are the lines for you in a film like this, where it's like, you know, what is that edge too far? How did you feel about the approach to telling the story from your, you know, from the serious kind of journalistic perch?
Yeah, I mean, I'm an NBC News Group employee, and I take great pride in that. And the substantive thing that means in terms of how I work is that I am bound by NBC News legal and standards, and I do not shake against that at all. I really value it. It's an insurance. I mean, it ensures rigor by essentially putting you in an adversarial process with people inside your own company who you're just, you know, it's a process that's designed to make you butt heads, but it's to test stuff to make sure that it's going to not get you in trouble, and that it's going to be something that you can stand up for, even when it's put under pressure. And so a good faith stress test of everything in the film, to me, is a really positive thing, and it means that when you get bad faith attacks, that will inevitably come. You can sort of stand with confidence and do those things.
So since we weren't at the screening last night with Lev and apparently his entire extended family, who joined the Q&A, I mean, tell us a little bit about Lev. I think Lev will go down as one of the iconic documentary figures. I mean, he jumps off the screen, Svetlana jumps off the screen, and I love how throughout the film, I don't know if you were feeling this way, but I was like, are they together? Are they not together?
Yeah.
Like, I can't quite tell. She seems to like this guy, but she's kind of pissed off, you know. So, I love the mystery and the reveal of that. But, you know, what's been his response? What is Lev like? Is this him? Is there more of him? I mean, tell us a little bit about managing his character.
Wrote a whole book.
It seems like there's more.
I mean, Lev, he's really compelling for many reasons, not the least of which is that when he broke from what he calls the cult, decultinized is the word that he has made up, and I don't think he knows he's made up. And he said he was hated by everybody, basically. Like, he was hated by the left for having been a treason weasel, and he was hated by the right for having committed the ultimate sin, which is betraying Donald Trump, of course. So he was a man without a country because he had betrayed both of his countries. And so it took him a while to sort of fall in with the resistance, if you will. And so now that he's kind of there and been embraced by it, he's gone full mea culpa, like full Michael Cohen, if you will. Like, and I think it's been good for him. I think it's been good for their marriage and for their children and their family who really went through it with this guy. You can imagine. And they seem to be really strong. They've admitted there's a lot of tension and that there have been rifts within the family with the different children that have been different, like ideologically, and the willingness to forgive him. They alluded to it last night, but it certainly seems like there's a lot more story there. And I didn't want to be too invasive about the children. Didn't ask you too much about that, but they did share a little bit about it last night, and I think it's really very interesting.
I also just feel like we're all experiencing their life just as characters in this film, and one of the things that I think that it's so aggressively cut and to get so much in, and there's no little breathing room in it because it moves so fast, but you did let the fact that Svetlana loves Lev show. And she really loves him, and she is really smart. Mm-hmm. And that's a hilarious combination.
Right.
Because he's smart. He's sort of crazy like a fox. He obviously has incredible instincts when it comes to street level survival and dealing with disingenuous, dangerous people. And he's done a lot in his life. But she sees him exactly for who he is. She doesn't take any guff from him, and she loves him to death. And that to me is very moving. And I also think she's the star of the film.
Yeah.
She's
To that point, Rachel, since he's your boyfriend, when I'm watching a film like this, I'm thinking, okay, and he's got the lower third hustler. That's his lower third, is a hustler, right? And so you're like, is this a reliable source? Like, is he a reliable source? I don't know. How do we know he's even telling the truth? And is he really repenting, or is he pulling one over us? So how did you get under the hood of that and feel like, okay, yeah, this guy's really,
That's the central magic of Lev as a character in this film, because everything he says is completely unbelievable. Everything! You don't believe him. And then it turns out he has documented all of it. All of it. And the more insane the story, or the anecdote, or the proposition you're hearing from Lev, the more likely it is that he can show you receipts. In some cases, literal receipts, that these things happened. And to Tony Andre, and the lawyer who chased him to the ends of the earth, and the investigative journalist who chased him to the ends of the earth, being like, yeah, we found all the receipts, this all actually happened. It's that, I feel like, is the central absurdity of the film, that something this crazy happened, and yes, it really happened.
Yeah.
And he can prove it.
And you can prove it. Which is so insane that nobody is tracking this guy, that they don't realize he's taking all these photos, he's recording everything, he's got all the text, they're not even using Signal, I don't know. Like, not taking class.
Nothing's encrypted.
What is happening?
It would be like if in Watergate, G. Gordon Liddy was just running a tape recorder the whole time.
They operated with a level of impunity.
Yeah,
That's
well, that's
been
right.
the Trump story in his entire life. A guy born on third base who thinks he scored a touchdown. Really stable genius. And to this day has never had any consequences for any of his misbehavior. And so that sends a message, I think, to not only to him in the way in which he's carried out his life, but to everyone around him. And Svetlana makes it very well. More often than not, when I say somebody in this movie makes an interesting point, it's usually Svetlana. Give her credit, but she says, like, a President Hillary Clinton, a President Barack Obama, a President Biden would never have a guy like Lev. No one in their administration would let him get 1,000 yards, from the president. Like but this is what this presidency. What do you say? So he's a New York hustler. So it was a magnet for like ghouls and grifters and like all of these types of characters where you're just like, these are the president's men. Like this is like the best. Like this is the best they could come up with, and in truth it was, and they felt they could act however they wanted.
And that's part of the reason that I don't think we could have ever set out to guarantee that the film would come out before the election because of the market and all the other things. But I am glad that it's come out before the election, not necessarily because I feel like, oh, it's a bad stuff about Trump that people should hear and they should have that in mind when they vote, but rather, this is a useful time capsule to know what happens when crooks take over the White House.
Right. Yeah.
When crooks take over the White House, this is the way the White House runs. And I don't know if Donald Trump's going to get back into the White House. He might. I think it'll actually be different. I think that it'll be much more professional if he gets in for another term. I don't think it'll be exactly like this. But the first time he had a shot at it, this really is how he ran foreign policy, his re-election campaign, diplomacy, and the budgeting process.
Right.
I mean, this is how he decided whether or not Ukraine was getting military aid. Really? And it was a foreign influence operation. And keeping Russia in the title is also important. This was a foreign influence operation. And it was a foreign influence operation that found very fertile ground in that campaign, in that administration, and this is what it looked like, and we should never forget that. Even if it wasn't the biggest scandal, this was superseded by the second impeachment, and then the violent effort to overthrow the government. Like, there's a lot of Trump stuff. But we should never forget that this happened.
Well, it is an amazing portrait of corruption, and also the ways that power can work. So not that it has always works this way, but the ways, the levers that get pulled when people get into positions of power. So that's the thing that is so fascinating about it, is that he can weave that entire tale, to your point, with the evidence, with the stories, with the anecdotes, with all the things. And then we kind of have this clear understanding of like, oh, this is how that worked. What else do we know about how things unfolded? To that point, the ending is quite a surprise, and so kudos to that, because it's like, wait, Hunter's now they're gonna have this moment? Tell us a little bit about, Lev reaching out to Hunter, and I mean, frankly, I was like, why the hell would Hunter want to talk to this guy? Like, I don't understand, human psychology is so fascinating. What is going on?
Can I just interject and ask you guys, were any of you surprised by that ending?
Yes. It's recovery.
It's recovery.
It's recovery.
No, we've seen it on Rachel Maddow.
It was absurd, obviously.
Okay, thank you.
As Rachel has in the past aptly described describe so much of Lev's story. It's stupid. It's just like if not for the receipts, if not for the evidence. And remember, for every text from Rudy in this documentary, I think the ratio is probably 1,000 to 1 of like actual text messages that we have that Lev turned over his entire contact book, his iCloud, his everything. It's remarkable. And so Lev calls me in early May. We have the whole, we're between Rough Cut 1 and Rough Cut 2, so we have all 11 segments mapped out. We're trying to get this thing delivered in about 3 or 4 months. And Lev says, I'm talking to my probation officer about traveling out of the state. This is Florida man problems, you see.
Right.
And he says, I want to go to California to meet with Hunter Biden face to face to apologize to him. Would you be interested in filming that? But it was also ridiculous. I was like, there's a lot of interesting things I'd like to film that will never happen, and I'll add that to that list of things that never happen. He said, no, talk to this guy, he's kind of for the family of the Bidens, and I talked to him, and we set a date, it was Sunday, July 7th, and I think it's hilarious, because I think it's no chance. And then an interesting thing happens, Hunter Biden gets convicted on that gun trial in California. And I called Lev and I said, Lev, so obviously this isn't gonna happen anymore. No, it's gonna happen, it'll happen. And then the debate happens, June 26th, 27th. And I'm like, well, obviously this isn't gonna happen anymore. The president has to hunker down his family, determine his political future. Lev's like, no, it's gonna happen. So then I could fly to California from Miami, thinking at best 50-50 this is gonna happen on Sunday. I really thought it was a 0% chance. And then Sunday, I wake up with a text message from a number I don't know that says, this is Hunter Biden, please call me. And I call, and it is Hunter Biden. And we have a brief but really interesting conversation. And he says, just basic logistics, is this the time and place? He goes, well, what are we gonna talk about? I said, whatever you wanna talk about. I said, we're just gonna follow Lev in, and you guys, I said, you can shake his hand, you can hug him, you can punch him in the face, like, I don't know, whatever, do you. And I will be there with the camera. Yeah, you know, rest assured. And so, and then we had a really interesting conversation about addiction, which I've had in my immediate family, and then he says, the next call you get is from the United States Secret Service. Be sure you pick it up. And so I did, and it was the Secret Service, just reviewing some and confirming some logistics, and then we shot it. And then when it was over, we cut. They hugged a lot during the meeting. And when we cut, Svetlana was there, and Melissa, Hunter Biden's wife, was there. And Svetlana goes, so much touching. There was a lot more touching than I thought there would be. Everybody cracked up just like you did. But it was incredible. There was like, I don't know if you could hear it off some of the mics, we tried to mix it out, but there was sniffles coming from some of the crew members during that meeting. And I remember saying to Svetlana later, I said, remember in your interview when you told me Lev happened? Like, I didn't understand that until today. Like, just the weird, dumb shit that, like, for better or worse, like, he kind of, like, instigates or makes happen. My understanding, I don't want to speak for Hunter Biden, but my understanding from our brief phone call was that the reason he was doing this was that he was working a program in which he had to go to his family and loved ones and ask for forgiveness for the most horrible things that he had done and subjected them to. And he felt, who am I to deny this man his opportunity to make amends?
That's right.
And that was the spirit, I think, of his thinking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wow.
Were you surprised at this simple?
I was in a podcast recording studio and I got a series of urgent text messages. I know you're recording, you have to call me. And it was Jack Orr from Surprise Inside, who I work with, who was talking to you guys about this possibility. And I was like, I have something to tell you, it's good news, I think it's good news, it might be really bad news. Is this something involving you and your wife, Jack? I had no idea that it was, and it was so urgent. And then he told me what was happening, and I was like, yeah, call me when it happens. I'm very busy. Like I never even put it in my calendar because I thought the chance that it would happen was zero. And then actually after the debate, NBC News reported that while President Biden was deciding how to handle the fallout of the debate and making this decision, that Hunter Biden was with him and at the White House and meeting with his father and very close to that decision-making process, which to me, at that point, I just closed off the possibility that it would ever happen. But I would also just say, like, talking about the crew getting people be feeling emotional in that moment, like, they're totally apart from the politics of this. That is a model of, like, big boy behavior that is really moving to me.
Yeah.
And for them both, it is, I think, coming from a place of recovery, as she's describing. Both actually from Lev and Hunter's side. Lev is with gambling, and Hunter with addiction. But for them both to be able not only to apologize and to offer forgiveness, but to be able to explain why they needed to do it and to put detail behind it and to sit there with the emotions of it and to greet each other where they are. I mean, not only is that no punching, but that is a model of, I think, like adulthood that is very moving to me.
So now we can all go get our list of people we need to apologize to. No, it's true. It's fascinating, and I just kept watching him and thinking, if we could get this guy to do some good things, like he can be very persuasive for good, you know. Like let's put him up for that.
Well, he wants. I mean, one of the things he's been talking about is he wants to help people leave the mega cult. He does think of it as a person serious about that. It's not a term of art, not just a term of phrase for him. It's a term of art, and he feels like he can offer people who have been real cultized in his word, that he can offer help to try to get on the other side of it and make amends to their own families and lives that they've heard through being part of that. Which, I mean, I don't know if he can, but his commitment to try to do that is again moving me.
So I've been given the signal. I think I was given the wave, the hand wave. Yes, I was. So I want to ask one quick question. So this is going to be on MSNBC. And so tell us a little bit about what's going to unfold for the film, what you hope will happen for this film, where people can see it, when they can see it. Do you know the things?
Oh, yeah. Friday, September 20th at 9 p.m. Eastern on MSNBC. So if you like the movie, please tell your friends to watch it. If you didn't like the movie, put yourself, don't be But also, it's going to be, we're making some minor tweaks to it, so the version you see on TV will be a little different. Mostly cosmetic, you might not know, but it will be a little different. I'm just trying to encourage you to watch it again. But it's true what I'm saying, but I just say to everybody. So if you want to know what I hope for, I hope that people will watch it. More importantly, I'm ever cognizant of the fact that it is in a bit of a silo or an echo chamber there on MSNBC, and I hope that it finds an audience beyond that, because I think this kind of got memory hold, in all of the, the fire hose of the Trump era, and the fact that this was just the first impeachment, but I feel like, as Rachel said, it's a story worth remembering, it's a story worth sharing, and it's a story worth facing in light of the questions of competency of future administration.
And I don't think you have to start off as somebody who's opposed to Donald Trump to get something out of this film. This is a thing that happened in our country. It was one of the worst things that Russia has done to us in the modern era. It was one of the worst and most injurious humiliations that they inflicted on a country that they attacked, that was one of our key allies, and they used us to inflict that injury on them. It is a profound perversion of the U.S. diplomatic process, the U.S. State Department, and the whole foreign policy apparatus. And whether or not you come into this feeling one way or another about Donald Trump, this happened. And it's worth knowing that it happened, because if we don't remember that it happened, it will certainly happen again. But also it's worth knowing that American institutions, parts of the way that we run the government, need to be a lot stronger, need to account for the fact that they were corrupted in these ways, and need to have new internal, I think, guidelines to make sure that this stuff doesn't happen again. whether it's Trump who's back in there or any other malefactor, whoever gets those reins of power.
Well, thank you. I don't know if you, I just learned tonight, and maybe I knew this before, but was reminded that Rachel is a Berrien native. Yep.
That's right. Welcome home.
It is like oddly, I feel like comfortable saying this. I'm like, it's kind of a lot of fun, that film, but you know, it doesn't feel like, given what you just said, it doesn't feel like it should be fun. But thank you so much for bringing this work to life and for introducing us to Lev, and also, we didn't even talk about Rudy Giuliani.
Oh my God.
So thank you and congratulations. And don't forget to share that this will be on
Yay! Will you sign a pride flag for my charity? For charity? Incredible film. Loved it.
Thank you.
Loved
Thank
it.
you so much.
Love
Thank you for
it.
coming.
Hey, how would it have changed at the end if Hunter hadn't shown up? How would it have ended?
Shittier. A lot less compelling.
Yeah.
No, it was.
Oh.
Shit. Sorry. Throw my phone again. Because I love your shoes.
Oh.
Because we had already had it. It was basically.
I figured it was in the
was
can.
basically like Seg 10. It was like the mea culpa thing. Good night. Travel safe. Yeah, it was basically like just Lev's mea culpa.
Yeah.
Is really what it was. It was nice. It was cool. And his congressional testimony, which was pretty fucking dramatic.
Yeah,
so we have a whole thing where he had talked about like I didn't get to. No one wanted to hear me. I never got to testify, but then I finally did, which would have happened. Well, it just happened in March.
Yes.
So yeah. Anyway, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
My pleasure. Will you sign for? Oh, you're the best.
I will.
It's for the Trevor Project
Oh, I love the Trevor Project.
and for the Napa LGBTQ connection.
Oh, sure, because it's nice to see
You want to do it on the roof of this car, on the tree, maybe? I got Pink and Fortune Feimster and Janelle Monáe and Fred Armisen and now
now
Rachel
me.
Maddow, my favorite.
What's your name?
DJ Rotten Robbie.
DJ Rotten Robbie, it's great to meet you.
Thank you so much. The
All right,
film was
I don't want to
incredible.
let it hit the ground.
Thank you. It won't.
All right.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh my God! Is it?
Yes, Rachel.
Oh, Rachel.
Oh my God, she's a this. Yes.
Can you share that with me?